be. Mhm. Michael Case. Okay, we're just waiting for Liz Allen to get on, and then we'll go from there.
I think this is the last time you raise your voice. Say something that you know.
Good morning, all. Am I on?
Good morning,
Hello.
sir.
How are we all doing today? We have Amy Murdoch from the Chamber with us this morning. Sorry, we're getting a late start here, Amy. Technical difficulties as usual, but we're trying. But if you would like to take it away, if you would, please.
Sure. Happy to. Thanks this morning. Good to see you. And I'm watching the faces on the screens that everyone's preparing. It looks like Ed and Jim were just having way too much fun without the rest of us. Oh, glad to see some smiling faces while you're hard at work. As Jim said, I'm Amy Murdoch. I'm with the Chamber. So really just in an effort, we're trying to provide a regular update to all of you because we know that the work that we do at the Chamber is important to you as a public body, and we want your input and your feedback. So I always have a lot to say, only because I'm very excited about the work that we're doing, but please, don't hesitate to stop me and ask questions, or if you have something that you're interested in knowing more about, just interrupt me and cut me off. I'm glad to talk more about whatever you'd like to hear about. I had sent you earlier this morning my update, and if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen if that's all right with you. I'll just kind of walk through this real quickly. Okay, is that working okay?
Great.
So last time I think I talked to you a little bit about our Erie Restart effort. That's really an effort that we're taking on with both community and public leaders to think about how do we restart our economy in this crisis. And there's really kind of three major areas that have come out of this that I wanted to just give you an update. We have in total 5 working groups, but these 3 I think are probably most relevant to you and the work that you're doing with the city. Our workforce group, looking at barriers to childcare and education. We also have a public policy agenda that we've been working really hard on putting together. Part of that, we've been talking about our role in seeking additional funding for state and local governments. We know that's a huge issue that's being debated at the national scale right now. We know that the city has huge funding gaps, and a lot of those gaps are needed to address critical services that our businesses need to stay open. Infrastructure, roads, all of these things that are really important to doing business. And so we want to make sure that the city is funded to provide these essential services. And then some of the small business relief, some of the loans and grants and things that have come out, we were a little bit concerned in the way that they're administered, if they're not administered at the local level. We're advocating the additional funding be used, that it's administered locally, because we think this, particularly the smaller businesses will have better access to those programs. So that's something that, you know, we're advocating for. And then finally, our capital recommendations. So we have about 4 or 5 different programs that we're recommending. A lot of this language, we're still refining a lot of this language, so we're not ready to you know, give you all of our recommendations today, but I wanted to kind of give you a sneak peek. But these capital programs are really intended to address some of the underserved communities and businesses that we've seen that have suffered, particularly through the pandemic. But probably out of all of this, what I'd really like to draw your attention to is that capital work group has drafted a set of what we're calling guiding principles. And what we're hoping out of those is that not only for the chamber, but for our partners at the city, the county, and other levels, would consider adopting some of these principles. We know that a lot of the funding relief flows through the city, the county, and some of these important organizations. If you recall, we actually developed a set of guiding principles for the Opportunity Zone projects that we cultivated last year for Erie Homecoming, really intended to address some of the socioeconomic inequities that we see. This language, we're hoping, will help the community address some of these inequities as well. So once we have that language finalized, I'd like to share that with you in detail and get some of your feedback. But I think that's a really important outcome of all of this work. And our hope is that these principles would not, you know, just be adopted or endorsed and then set aside, but actually that these principles would be used to help evaluate projects, funding, you know, other efforts in the community as we're injecting public funding sources into business or economic development, that these principles would help us do that in a more equitable way. So, any questions or concerns on that one? Okay. All right. So I'll just move through a few other things you probably saw a couple weeks ago. International Recycling Group announced their investment. So they've secured $9 million in total of local investment dollars. This is an Opportunity Zone investment, so it's a really good outcome of the homecoming event that we held last year. The CEO of this company attended Erie Homecoming. They were actually looking at going in another location, but they came to Erie and liked Erie. They were able to partner with some local investors here. And so we're very excited about that. The location is still yet to be determined. But we think, you know, over the next 3 to 5 or so years, over 100 jobs. So we're very excited about that. It's nice in sort of this COVID world to have some regular good news. So we're very, very pleased with that. There are a couple of other Opportunity Zone investments that we're anticipating to come soon. And I think I told you when I first started this work, I always hated when economic development people said we have a prospect, but now I have to tell you we have a prospect, and we're just not ready to talk about it in more detail. But of course, I'm always happy to talk with Jim or others if you have questions. I did want to touch on, I think since the last time we met, the announcement of the Erie Innovation District has coming to the chamber. I just wanted to provide an opportunity if you had questions about that transition or what that looks like. We have one staff member, Jordan Fuller, that has come over from the Erie Innovation District that is now on staff at the chamber. We're very excited to have Jordan with us. He's incredibly talented. But Jordan is really focusing on not as much a focus on the smart city that the Erie Innovation District had previously, but at this point in time, he's really focused on the accelerator program. He's trying to narrow down to probably 5 to 10 businesses that will participate in the accelerator program. They're all really good. I had an opportunity to view some of the applications, but these are startups or early phase businesses that are looking for some support to expand and grow. And the accelerator would provide them some support, expertise, and also some financial support to help them grow. So any questions? I know that's kind of a big change. Any questions about that transition? If someone's talking, I'm having a hard time hearing. Were there any questions on that? No. Okay.
No question.
Okay. And then also just wanted to give you an update. Some of the major advocacy work that I've been taking on, of course, we continue to be very supportive of the community college. We see that as really a really critical initiative for our businesses because we know that workforce is one of their greatest barriers to growth. So of course, we're very excited. Now we have a board that is seated. We'll want to continue to be supportive of them. We're also not naive to the fact that there's a lot of work to be done, garnering resources from the state or other funding sources to get this moving in the right direction. So we're going to continue to stay engaged in that and continue to be supportive. I did want to say thank you for passing the resolution to make the appointments to boards and authorities more accessible. We're really excited about that opportunity. We know that the more diverse those appointments are, I think the stronger some of these organizations can be. I'm also not going to be shy about recommending some business leaders, I think, that may have an interest in serving in some of these capacities that have some skill sets to lend. We're interested in connecting some of our members and some of our business leaders to be considered for some of these roles. And lastly, I know that you had a lot of debate over the Water Authority proposal, and I appreciate all of the questions. I watched the study sessions and I watched the finance meeting, and I appreciate all of the questions you asked. It seemed as though you as a council took that decision very, very seriously and asked all of the right questions. We too were very interested in how the funding is invested. And so, sorry, I just wanted to pause. I'm hearing a comment and wanted to make sure I was leaving room for questions. So, okay. So we're going to continue. We're meeting with the mayor next week to learn more about what he's thinking, but we're going to continue to stay engaged in that conversation as well.
Well, Amy, I don't know if any council personnel has any questions for Amy. I know you're still doing your job due diligently, and thank you for keeping us informed. I don't know if council has any questions at this point.
Yes,
Amy?
Amy, I have a question. Sorry we gotten late, but David and I were sent the wrong link early this morning. So my question, and I am going to mention this in my committee report, is in regard to, you talk about advocacy. And I had raised the issue when we voted to double the city's contribution to the chamber, that we were actually subsidizing Republican talking points. And two things at least make it clear to me that I was right. One was in Kevin Cuneo's column when he mentioned that your CEO had included a link in his newsletter, Wall Street Begins warning about a Biden presidency. I agree with Kevin when he wrote that the mention of it seemed kind of partisan coming from a person in Grunke's position. So I am going to mention that at my committee report. I was also quite stunned at the story about the restaurants in the newspaper on August 20th, I think, where it quoted your CEO as saying, it said the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership has said in a series of messages to the Wolf administration that state mandates are only making things worse. Grunke wrote, quote, "We can no longer expect our businesses to have faith in a system that is failing them." These are obviously talking points right from the person in charge in Washington, blaming a Democratic governor when it should be the pandemic that is blamed. I was really impressed that there were a number of restaurant owners who talked about how they follow the mandates because they don't want their staff or their patrons to get sick. So I just want to let you know that when that funding comes up again for the budget for 2021, I will object to it. I probably won't have the clout to get it cut, but I'm very disappointed. I think it's ironic that you're talking about your advocacy efforts to get funding for the community college, and in the other hand, dissing the Wolf administration. So that's all I want to say. You don't have to comment. I'm just telling you that I am disappointed, but not surprised that what I suspected has actually happened. So for all the good things you're doing, you take away your credibility when those kind of positions are taken.
Any other questions, council? Any other questions or comments from council? Hearing none. Let me make sure I'm still on here. Amy, thank you for your time this morning. Of course, we will be bothering you again for an update, hopefully in the near future and hopefully in person. Appreciate the effort you're doing, and with that, you have a good day.
The pandemic magically goes away.
I was talking to Amy.
In person, right.
Thank you for the time. And Liz, I'd be glad to follow up with you one-on-one to talk a little bit more about your concerns. So thank you for raising them. I'm always glad to hear you.
I know you do. I have confidence in you. Thank you.
Is there any, let me make sure we're on. Is there anything else on the agenda council would like to discuss before our meeting? Hearing none, I think Rose will get our meeting started. You're muted.
Roll call for the city council meeting of Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020 at 9 a.m. Mr. Winarski, Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mrs. Schaaf is absent, and Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of minutes from the meeting of August 19th, 2020, and bills for payment on 8/28 and 9/4/2020. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski.
Excuse me, Rose.
Yes.
This time, City Council would like to pay a little tribute to you.
Oh, boy.
You don't have to get up, you can stay seated, but we have a little tribute that from myself and my colleagues here on council upon your retirement after 43 years with the city of Erie. Whereas Rose Boyer started working in the city in 1977, during her tenure with the city of Erie, she worked with 17 city council members and 5 mayors. Rose worked in several departments, mostly with the Bureau of Police, becoming deputy city clerk and then appointed Erie's first female city clerk in July of 2014. Rose's hard work, dedication, honesty, and sincerity made working with her a pleasure and a valued colleague. Her commitment and professionalism has served as an asset to the Erie community. So with therefore, let it be resolved by Erie City Council that this commendation is hereby presented to Roseanne Rosie Boyer upon her retirement from the city of Erie with heartfelt thanks, adoration, and love. That doesn't say it in there, but the love is in there. Thank you, Rose, for your dedication.
Thank you so much.
Here, I'm going to give you this. Don't have my mask on.
That's okay. I've got mine on.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we didn't receive any letters for repository sales, so we can go into citizens to be heard.
Seven. Start with Rebecca DeHaas.
Good morning. Good morning. She has a bird, or the birds are outside.
Wonderful day in the neighborhood.
Rebecca DeHaas.
Can move on. Maybe she'll come back.
Address
Good morning. Good morning, are you on?
Leanne Nicotine.
We lost your voice too.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you. My name's Leanna Naratko, and I am here because last Friday, the 28th of August, I received a phone call at work from a retired Erie police lieutenant. It was in regards to our Black Lives Matter sign that's posted outside of our building. This retired Erie police lieutenant was a complete stranger to me. So I was shocked when he proceeded to tell me that I should be raped and murdered. He repeated it to me, that I should be raped and murdered. I do see your face, but he repeated it several times. When I hung up, he called back to try to justify his statement to the next person who answered the phone. His explanation was that he'd like to see me raped and murdered, because then who would I call? This may have been a reference to defunding the police, but that wasn't something I said to him on this call. I guess in his fantasy scenario of violence, a call to a fully funded police department would somehow unrape and unmurder me. We should all be alarmed that sexual violence is the go-to threat for this former member of the Erie Police Department. This is how he fantasizes, I will learn my lesson. Vigilante violence is his idea of justice for me. In this case, it was also a reminder. The control of women through sexual violence is at the fingertips of members of our own Erie community, people in positions of power. He also seemed to believe that being against police brutality was somehow against our own police department. I wonder why he is so threatened at the prospect of increased accountability for Erie police. How did this man treat victims of sexual assault during his tenure? If he's so offended at the idea that Black Lives Matter, how did he treat Black people while he was on the force? Please note this incident occurred on the heels of the firing of another tenured police officer, a different one, over his public racist email rant. I won't name him today, but I did name him in the police report I filed with the Erie Police, and I have not heard back yet. Would the Erie Police have us believe that these are two bad apples? Or can we accept that global protests demanding accountability for police have merit, even in our own community, especially in our own community? A community in which, at the very least, one person who has long held a position of power believes in threatening women with rape to intimidate and silence us. My intention today is to alert you and to publicly record that you are aware of this incident, and to give an opportunity for the Erie Police and Erie City government to denounce this. I'm also asking for a few specific things. I'm asking that you review the Erie Police Department's latest training on issues of sexual assault. Ensure they understand the impact of sexual assault and threats of sexual assault, as well as the consequences both personally and to the community at large. I'm asking that you work to dismantle the us versus them mentality. Fighting against police brutality and for police accountability is something that any good, honorable police officer would want as well. Finally, I'm asking that you move forward with an effective citizens review board. Please take this seriously. Do the work even when it forces us to look inward on our own flaws. Having a former Erie Police Department lieutenant make such a disgusting and violent threat against me has changed me. I have deep sadness for anyone who has had this experience with this individual and does not have the privileges that I have to say something, and I hope I can be a voice for them too. And I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you.
Andrea Stelmach.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm a resident of Erie. I live on Haybarger Avenue. I'm actually, I live in the same neighborhood as the woman that just spoke, and I shop at the co-op frequently. She's a friend of mine, and I'm really appalled. You know, as this incident occurred, as she received this phone call, I was messaging with her, horrified. Like, as I'm talking to you right now, my heart is blasting in my chest. I'm so frustrated, and there is something seriously wrong in the Erie Police Department right now. I am gonna need some accountability here, man. I'm a taxpayer, and this is really rubbing me the wrong way. We got people kicking people at protests, writing hateful racist emails, just spouting off, calling people at their jobs, threatening to rape them and kill them. What the hell is going on here? I need some answers, and I need some answers right now. This community needs some answers, because I take people out with an organization and I promise them that they will be safe under my wings when we go out and we go into the communities and we talk about what is going on right now with the Black Lives Matter movement in America and the other atrocities going on. And I can't just keep bringing people out into the community to support the community, to bring awareness to the community, in a community that is policed by police who obviously have ill intentions. Like, what is going on here? Like, who do I take this to? Where do I go? Because this is a community that I live in, and I am scared for women, children, people of color. It's unbelievable. You let me know. Here's my email, ALSTELMACK@gmail.com. thank you so much. I concede the rest of my time.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to have a copy of that report that the lady filed.
Very good.
Rebecca DeHaas.
Rebecca DeHaas. Cole Shenley.
Hi, yes.
Hello there.
My name is Cole Shenley. I live at 615 Ohio Street in Erie, PA. I am the board president for the Whole Foods Co-op. We employ Ms. Naratko, and I wanted, as a private citizen, I wanted to show my support for her and her story. I talked to her shortly after the incident happened. It is very angering that this is the fourth such incident of a similar nature between the beating of Hannah Silba and the Mr. Nunziata's racist rant and the other police brutalities that have happened this summer. I really want some accountability. I support all of her asks, including that police review board. There needs to be some real accountability here for this police department. They are some of the highest paid city people, city employees. They are paid an incredibly high salary for apparently very shoddy work when they are allowed to make racist rants, make threats of sexual violence. That needs to end. And so we desperately need a citizens review board. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Kate Kager.
Yes, I noticed that the police are given psychological profile tests when they come into the
Excuse me, ma'am. Can you give your name and address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Kate.
That's all right.
Kager. I live at 146 Cypress Street in Erie.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. And I noticed that they are given a psychological test when they come into the job. And I'm just wondering if they are given testing further. I think that they should be tested yearly or every other year. I think that the job needs to be, is something, you know, they're walking around carrying guns, and I just think it's something that they ought to be given tests frequently. It's something that should seriously be considered if it's not being done already. I yield my time.
Thank you kindly.
Elspeth.
Morning, everyone. Elspeth Cayley, 1232 West 11th Street. Recently, Erie County United sent a letter to President Judge John Trusilla asking that he extend the eviction moratorium in Erie County at least until through the end of November. And then when I woke up, I saw that the CDC has expanded the moratorium, but there are certain criteria that renters must meet and mortgage payers. But what I'm asking of you all is to consider, please, halting the property tax sales, at least within the city, until, I don't know. I mean, give those people some more time, just like, you know, the CDC has. We had a number of partners and organizations sign on to this letter, including Kathy Schaaf, Dave Robinson, the chair of the Erie County Housing Authority, Jasmine Flores, the organizer with Erie Equity Coalition, Lydia Lathe, Washington Township Councilperson, French Creek Indivisible, Benedictines for Peace, Sisters of Mercy of Erie Justice Committee, Sisters of St. Joseph of Northwestern PA, St. Patrick's Haven, Kathleen Lutz, Independent Advocate for Families, Freda S. Tepfer, MED, Emmaus Ministries, Benedictine Sisters of Erie, and Beverly Weaver, the Executive Director of the Erie Housing Authority. So I just ask that you take their expertise into consideration when it comes to the health and safety of Erie residents, homelessness, and mass housing or housing shelters could be a real hotbed for the COVID-19. So I'm just asking to consider that halting the tax sales just to try to protect Erie residents' health and safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any letters, Ruth?
I believe that's all the citizens to be heard. We will move on with our agenda.
Ordinances for first reading, Council File Number 16178, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $539,636.36 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Revenue is from the FEMA Firefighter Assistance Grant for the purchase of equipment for firefighters. By Mr. Winarski, seconded by Mr. Witherspoon. That Council File Ordinance Number 16178, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance Number 16178 by yeas 6, nays 0 on first reading. It'll take us to new business. By Mr. Winarski, second by Mr. Witherspoon. Resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that Lori Watson is hereby appointed City Clerk of the City of Erie effective September 17th, 2020. Ms. Allen?
I have something to say about this, a lot to say before I vote. So can I speak?
Yes, you can, Ms. Allen.
I'm voting no on this, and it's not about the person, it's about the process. City Council consistently fails to create and/or follow processes. When City Clerk Jim Clem retired in 2014, City Councilman Jim Winarski proposed retaining Clem as a consultant at a cost of $1,000 a month for 2 years to assist the new city clerk, Rose Boyer. Mr. Winarski's proposal was approved by a 4-3 vote. David Brennan did vote against that, as did Bob Mursky. I don't know who the third no vote was. Mr. Clem collected his annual pension of $69,732 a year at the same time he was receiving $1,000 a month to train his successor and archive documents. Apparently, there was no successor plan in place prior to that time when Mr. Clem announced his retirement after his well-regarded 48-year career in City Hall. When we had 2 openings on City Council due to members being elected to new positions, there was no detailed, transparent process in place for filling those vacancies. I had to fight both times to draw up a plan for applicants. Again, when we started meeting remotely, I spent days fighting to make sure that citizens could participate by Zoom instead of just by email. After Freda Tepfer mentioned that we should be able to hear their voices. How would it have been if we had just heard Leanne's statement today by email instead of by her voice? And until David Brennan took on the task of making openings on boards and authorities public, there was no rhyme or reason to which council person got to appoint someone. We were simply told it was our, quote, turn. In one case, this resulted in someone who actually owns blighted property being appointed to one of the boards responsible for cleaning up blighted property. Go figure. There was no process in place to replace our current city clerk, even though Rose announced her retirement on June 10th. As soon as she announced it, I sent her a congratulatory email. Then over the weekend, I had to create a timeline of how this process unfolded. And I want to go through this because the public needs to know that city council, it's not that we're dysfunctional, we're non-functional. So on June 10th, Rose emails city council to say she is retiring. June 17th, Connie Cook emails job descriptions for the city clerk, the deputy clerk, and the legislative aide to us. On June 30th, Lori emails saying she's interested in the job. It was a very good letter of application. On July 4th, David Brennan emails Jim Winarski to ask about the process to fill the clerk's position. July 4th, Mel Witherspoon responds, quote, Mr. President, should be Marilyn or Lori. Our first consideration must be from within our organization as long as the qualification is present and the desire to do the job. Then the union process will take place to fill the open position. If no union bid is made, then the position is open to the outside. July 4th, Kathy Schaaf responds, I believe both our present clerks are applying. August 5th, I email Harry Crott, the membership director at the Pennsylvania Municipal League. Now, this is after we discussed this about how we were going to go forward. I don't know if it was in caucus or at an actual city council meeting. I think it might have been at a city council meeting. And so I told my colleagues that I was doing this. I emailed Harry Crott to ask if he could find some sample city clerk job descriptions for us. Harry immediately replied saying he didn't have sample job descriptions, but would ask colleagues for some help. Harry also said he agreed, yes, it is good to periodically review job descriptions, especially right now as we have transitioned to a lot of online work because of COVID. He didn't say that, but I mean, I think he did say that, but I also agree with that. August 17th, Renee emails Jim and Kathy and copies Frank Stormilla, pointing out problems with the Indeed job listing, including the incorrect City of Erie website. How embarrassing is that? Renee had a lot of great suggestions about what should be included in the job description. Now, mind you, David Brennan and I did not know that this job was being listed on Indeed.com. And we were not privy to the suggestions that Renee had in terms of job description, but I certainly had, based on the job descriptions I got from Bethlehem and from Butler, I knew that there were ways that we would be able to revise the job description to reflect what our needs are in 2020 and beyond. After that, apparently this job application or job announcement was out there and then pulled down from Indeed, but it was out there long enough that a couple of people did apply. I got an email from somebody who wanted to know if the job was truly open or if this was kind of just a farce or a fake thing to appear to be open. And I said, I didn't even know the job had been advertised. August 25th, Connie Cook emails us a letter of application, a resume from a woman who had government experience. August 28th at 11:48 a.m., Marilyn Pohl emails to our personal accounts this message from City Council President Jim Winarski, quote, after input from several council members, not including me, and I don't want to speak for David, but I know that he also was not consulted. After input from several council members, the majority have decided to keep the position of city clerk in-house. This will be on the agenda for September 2nd, 2020, to name Lori Watson as city clerk. August 28th, at 2:26 p.m. in the afternoon, Kevin Flowers calls me. I was working at the library and I called Kevin back on my 15-minute break. I had not, obviously I was working. I hadn't seen the message from Marilyn about this. August 28th at 2:40 p.m., David Brennan texts Winarski and the rest of council, Jim, I just saw the agenda only after having Kevin Flowers call me to ask what's going on with the city clerk position. It's not a good position to be uninformed and have the press call you for your opinion. I told him I did not know a resolution proposing Lori to fill a position was on the agenda since there was no discussion by council other than a few side comments. I told Kevin we were still discussing. With that said, as the sponsor of the resolution, can we possibly have some discussion on this important subject and get some consensus on the process and selection from all council before placing on the agenda? 3:48 p.m. on August 28th. This is Friday. I joined the text thread on my break after talking to Kevin. Part of my thread said, I will never stop insisting that process and procedures matter and must be agreed to by council as a whole. Kathy Schaaf then replied with some other ideas about the stress of working during COVID. On Sunday, David, Kathy, and I met on Microsoft Teams to talk about a number of pending issues. And we had hoped that we could propose that this clerk job, that Lori take over the clerk job on an interim basis while we revise the job description. And we don't have the votes for that. So here we are. We're appointing somebody who I know has a lot of talent. I didn't know that she had a degree in speech communications from Barron until I got her email. We are missing the opportunity to actually hear from Rose, Marilyn, and Lori about what they would do being in charge on how to improve the city clerk's office. I always find that those who are working in those positions often know best what should be reflected in the job description, what new skills they can bring, what opportunities they have. We also do not know how much this position is going to pay. I want to point out that the current city clerk makes, I believe oh, here it is right here. The current city clerk makes $69,556, which is actually pretty close to the annual pension that Jim Clem gets. The deputy city clerk makes $65,666, and the legislative assistant, which is Lori, makes $54,709. So how much is Lori going to make in the new job? Is she going to make what Rose is making? If so, that would be a 27% bump in salary. This is so typical of the way this council functions without any process. I end up getting put in the awkward position of being the bad guy because I ask that we have processes. I ask that we have communication. I ask that we have transparency. I know that one other thing that I will mention is that we were also never informed until Sunday by Kathy Schaaf that Marilyn Pohl was not interested in the job. The last communication I had from Kathy in July was that Marilyn was interested. And that was one of the reasons I had asked, well, what do you do when you have two internal candidates? So messed up as usual from the get-go. And it's a shame that this is how this council functions without a process. I know now that I will not have a friend in the city clerk. Maybe I shouldn't say that because Lori and I always like to talk about our kids and her daughter who's a writer and everything. But you have placed me in the awkward position of having to vote no because of the way this was carried out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council?
Mr. President, I do have a comment, if I could.
Sure.
I'm also disappointed that we did not take the opportunity to discuss this position as a group, before it was put on the agenda. In a group, we could have shared each of our council members' thoughts, ideas, concerns, and to also ask some of the questions. Some of the questions I have and some other councilman questions that they asked me, well, as Liz mentioned, what's the salary? How does Lori's current position get filled? Any adjustments needed to the job description responsibilities? Given COVID, should we consider not filling Lori's current position until after COVID so we decide on the future of the position, given all the responsibilities do change over time? Is there an opportunity to review all of the current city clerk office just job descriptions and make any changes necessary to improve the office? Should we reevaluate salaries based on all these possible changes? And my questioning this position and the selection process was just that. It has nothing to do with questioning Lori's skill set or ability to do the job. Given the importance of this position to council and to our city, I always support a open and transparent process. And because this did not happen, I'll be voting on no on this resolution. But also, I would support an interim city clerk position for Lori to really provide an opportunity for Lori and also Marilyn to work with council to look at the structure of the office, possibly revise tasks, and help to improve the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Any other council?
Yeah, I like to weigh in on it. I agree that it's surprising that there is no official process for filling positions in 2020 within our city clerk and city council's office. But I will be voting yes, because I think it's in the city's long-term best interest to hire from within. The current deputy is already a city employee, already vested in our pension program, and I think it's more reasonable that we select somebody who's already with us for this position, and somebody who already has had a chance to observe the job, to go back to when the last city clerk retired. They had to keep him on in order to bring the current clerk up to speed. And so I think if we're able to hit the ground running and no need for a stopgap in order to keep facilitating this office moving, I think that it's a prudent thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. Anybody else?
Are you going to tell us what the salary is?
That's to be determined. I believe that goes through our finance department, but we as a council do set the salary. But I want to go back to my comments. Back when we kept Mr. Clem on, when Rose started as our city clerk, there was a total of 7 years experience between 3 women in that office. So the reasoning behind keeping Mr. Clem on was to help make that transition, give some more institutional knowledge to the new city clerk at that time, as well as the other 2 women in the office. At this point, plain and simply, we had someone with experience and knowledge in-house. She's been there for 7 years working under Rose also. I don't see any problem whatsoever. If we want to try to possibly change some, shall you say, job descriptions, maybe that can be added to it. But at this point, we got the qualified person we need, just happens to be in-house. If we were to go out and change the qualifications of the position, I don't know if somebody already approached a colleague of mine of ours that was interested in the position and they were ready to give it to them. I don't know, but we have a great staff there. Unfortunately, we're losing Rosie sooner than expected. I don't think she expected this or we did, but I will not elaborate on that for what reason why, but
wait. You're thinking that somebody approached us to try and get the job? Is that what you said?
Mr. President, I call for the vote.
No, I'm sorry, Mel. I have another question. I want to know from the council president why he did not talk to me and David Brennan about this. And I want to know about his allegation that we have been approached by someone. Oh, my God.
Mr. President, I call for the vote.
Yeah, thanks, Mel.
I wish she had this much passion in that water lease deal, but call for the vote, Rose.
She's muted. Rose is muted.
Wish you were.
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen,
No.
Mr. Brennan,
No.
Mr. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. This resolution will adopt 4-2. Okay. Is there a second?
Second to move the balance.
I second.
All
Any
right.
separations, Council? Have on one version.
Separate number 9.
I would like to separate number 10.
Okay. I think that's all, Rose. 9 and 10 under new business, unless we want to go back to number 1 too.
Okay, introduced by Mr. Brzezinski, a resolution extending the term of the exemptions, deductions, abatements, and credits for real property, earned income tax, net profits, mercantile, and business privilege taxes within a specific geographic area in Erie County designated as a Keystone Opportunity Expansion Zone or Keystone Opportunity Improvement Zone in order to foster economic opportunities, stimulate industrial, commercial, and residential improvements, and prevent physical and infrastructure deterioration within areas of the City of Erie, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, upon certain terms and conditions. Was there comment on this?
Mr. Keys.
Well, I am for economic development, and I'm not for it at any means necessary. We're facing a $3 million shortfall, and I'm not sure that we should be given additional tax breaks to corporations at this time. We weren't provided enough information about this, in my opinion, in order to move forward. That's all.
Thank you.
No other comment?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
This sounds like a catch-22. We're looking to foster economic development. Then on the other hand, we're not, at least we're looking at not approving or giving away a lot of tax breaks. And to me, it's like a catch-22, which comes first, chicken or the egg. It doesn't tell me what we're giving away. What are we offering? Is it by any means necessary? I don't know. That's the only hang up I have with it. If someone can explain that to me, I would surely vote yes. Thank you, sir.
Council, this is Renee Lamus.
Hello, Renee.
Hi, I just wanted to provide some clarification. This is the same thing that you approved for Savacchio Opportunity Park a couple of weeks ago. This is an extension of a state designated Keystone Opportunity Zone. So it's extends their benefit for the next, I want to say, I think it was 10 years.
10 years, Renee.
Yeah, and it's for state and property tax. You know, and given that we have LRTA in effect, they would already be, you know, any additional improvements that they make on the property, they wouldn't be paying additional property tax anyway. So the real benefit for them right now is to get that extension of the state designation so that they can forego the state taxes that will come with, you know, improvements and expansion. So I think in this case, the economic development is extremely important for our region, and we're not really giving up anything, you know, in a cost-benefit analysis. I know Chris Groner was going to be on, but he may have had a meeting that ran over.
Question. So what are the local taxes for that parcel right now?
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. When these were initially designated, there were about a dozen within the city of Erie, and now there are only 3 remaining. So again, we approved that, you guys approved that for Slovakia Opportunity Park a couple of weeks ago for, you know, the work that they're planning to do there, I think is extraordinary and will benefit that community greatly.
Mr. President, that gives me something to work with. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess it'd be nice with something like this if we know what we're talking in dollars and cents, because 10 years is a long time, and especially after they've already had 10 years. But yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we table it until we get the figures, that we're not voting on this blindly.
I have no problem with that. Do we have a second? I will second it.
Or
we do have a second. I believe David or myself. Right?
Renee, can
Okay.
we have Chris make a presentation at the next meeting then? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I know that time is of the essence on these because this has to get approved through the school district, the city, and the county. And so maybe he would even want to present
To all 3?
Well, I know he's presenting to the school district tonight. Maybe he would want to present to you even sooner, sooner rather than later, because this has to go through a process. It's not just your vote. So we don't want that to expire because then we won't have that opportunity at all.
Okay.
We are the first vote on it, Renee? Do they follow our suit normally, or?
I can't remember what the appropriate order is. I think it is city, school district, county.
Okay. Rose, I believe.
You can call in right now.
Well, there's a motion on the table by Mr. Keys, seconded by Mr. Winarski to table.
I don't know if can we have Chris speak or?
Hey, what, can we go back to that one, Rose, and go to number 10?
You have to deal with
business?
Okay, so you want to hold off on the vote to table and just come back to?
Please, that'll give Renee time.
All righty.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay. This is a resolution of the City of Erie, a resolution of the taxing district to approve an agreement among the County of Erie, Erie County Tax Claim Bureau, and the law firm of McDonald, Illig, Jones and Britton LLP. Whereas the County of Erie and Erie County Tax Claim Bureau have entered into an agreement with McDonald, Illick, Jones, and Britton LLP with respect to conduct a judicial lien-free tax sales during the years 2020, 2021, and 2022 of properties against which delinquent taxes are due and owing. And whereas the Board of the Taxing District has been requested to approve the agreement and agree that properties located in the taxing district can be exposed to the judicial tax sales. And whereas the board has determined that such resolution approving the proposed agreement is in the best interest of all the taxing district and tax claim bureau, and it will further the general objective of collecting delinquent property taxes and realizing the greatest amount of revenue possible on certain delinquent real estate taxes in accordance with 72 PS 5860.101. Comment?
I separated this in light of Elspeth's comments, and I'm going to vote no just because I think that it might be one way to call attention to the fact that a lot of people are really struggling. I have no other detailed information about what an alternative might be, but I'm respecting the fact that this is a huge issue because of the pandemic, and so that's why I separated it.
Sure, Mr. Keys.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you separated it, and I'm glad that you are listening to our constituents. While we do need some apparatus in place to collect taxes, this particular tax sale really does not benefit anyone. The city barely makes any money out of it. It doesn't even recoup usually the amount of money of the taxes that are owed. And we have 3 local banks here, Northwest, Marquette, and Erie Bank. So you have to realize that everyone's a loser if you divest these liens. That means all these mortgages that are owed to these local banks are ripped up during this sale. And then you have the homeowners, for whatever reason, have been exposed to this for not paying their taxes, who also lose. And so I just think it's a triple loser to have a lien-free tax sale. And I'm just happy to weigh in on this at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. Oh, I got a phone on.
Mr. President,
Yes,
may I speak?
sir.
I don't want to appear heartless, but you don't get on that list unless you're 3 years into arrears. The pandemic started in February, I believe. What happened to the 2 years before that? That's my only question. There are, it's nobody's fault. I'm not after the single property owner who is in distress. But there are a whole group of multi-owners that play that game. I have asked questions and I've not received answers as usual around here. Why do we have to wait 3 years for multi-property owners who are 2 years back? We should go after them right then, not wait 3. So again, I just bring out the fact the pandemic started in February. It's 3 years to get on that list, folks. And I rest my case.
Thank you. Rose?
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen?
No.
Mr. Brennan? Ms. Brzezinski? Mr. Keys? Ms. Witherspoon?
I think Rose might be muted again.
This resolution will adopt 5-1. You want to go back to number 9?
Yes, I believe they said we have Chris Groner on the phone.
Okay.
Good morning, council. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, we can.
Morning.
Good, thank you. Sorry to be late to the meeting here. Had some other meetings this morning, but understand there's a couple of questions on the KOZ extension, so hopefully I can address those. The KOZ program dates back to the late 1990s. At one time in Erie, we had roughly 17 KOZ parcels throughout the city. Those parcels have all seen development and have rolled off of that program, except for these two remaining, Savacchio Park, and then there's 24 acres that's adjacent to McGinnis Rolled Rings on East 12th Street. As these parcels have been developed, they have not been renewed, obviously, because the intent is then for those to become tax-paying sites, and they all have become revenue-generating developed sites now. If you recall, there were sites such as 16th and Pittsburgh that has now been developed. We had a KOZ where the old, where the Hero BX plant is, that's now in full production. The Calypso site was a KOZ, and a few other sites throughout the city. Those condos on 14th and Parade that the Redevelopment Authority built. And so over the last 20 years, these sites have slowly been developed. They've rolled off the KOZ program, and the state also is slowly winding this program down. They're not approving any new KOZ sites, but they are granting extensions to the existing sites that have yet to be developed. So the two main sites that we have in the city, we have three. There's the two main ones that we're trying to renew now is Savacchio Park and the McGinnis, the 24 acres at McGinnis. The only other remaining one is the 14 acres to the west of Hammermill. We're hoping that will eventually be developed, but that was extended about 3 years ago, so that's got about 7 or 8 years left. So the program has done what it was intended to do. It's just some of these sites have taken longer than we've hoped. In terms of marginal revenue and how it affects the city's budget, none of these sites have been paying taxes because they've been KOZs since 1999. So there's nothing that we're giving up. We're just, we continue to extend it out in hopes of incentivizing development.
Question, so what would be the assessed value or the tax value of the property?
Well, it's hard to determine until it's developed. We don't know what the end development's going to be and what it would be assessed at. So it's really hard to determine. For example, with Savacchio Park, there's 7 of those 8 lots remaining. So we don't know what the future development would be assessed at. So it's really difficult to say what they'll eventually generate, but they haven't been generating any tax revenue now for quite some time. But our hopes are that you know, we will get these sites to turn just like the other ones, and that they will eventually be developed and be revenue generating. So I wish I had a better answer for you. It's just hard to say without knowing what the future project cost is going to be.
Chris?
Yeah, I would just quickly add that they're going to be paying a lot more after the development than they would be paying now on just acres of land.
Chris,
Well,
one thing
definitely,
I see,
yeah. I mean, if you look at like Hero BX, and you look at Calypso, and you look at 16th and Pittsburgh, they're all paying much more than they would have been paying if it was just vacant land. That's correct. I mean, ultimately, they're going to pay more, not just in property tax, but in earned income tax, state sales tax, state excise tax, corporate tax. All of those end up flowing back at a much higher rate than just a parcel of vacant land.
Chris, this is Mel.
Hi, Mel.
What's the possibility of a 501c3 developing a program and not paying any taxes?
It's entirely possible if one were to develop on one of those sites, then the KOZ would be, the way a KOZ would benefit a nonprofit is, for example, they would not have to pay any sales tax on anything that they purchase for 10 years. They would have preferential contracting status with the state for 10 years. So they would not have the same level of incentive as a for-profit company, because they already don't have to pay taxes, but there would still be some incentive for a nonprofit to develop on one of those sites, just not as much incentive.
Okay. Thank you.
Chris, I think that McGinnis, the document that we got was really extensive, well presented, and you gave a good explanation. But as you went through the various developments, I think that one of the things, like for the future, would be to actually have that data and to be able to say to us now, 16th and Pittsburgh is paying XXX, Hero BX is paying XXX. I mean, that always helps, because then you can see in hard numbers what's working. And I did have one other question though, and I know when we put together packages, in your job, we are trying to do really good incentives for businesses in the city of Erie. But do these sites also qualify for additional tax abatements, like for example LERTA? I'm not sure. And as you said, I know KOZ is winding down, but are there limits on, if you're in a cause, can you also get LERTA, or is that to be determined?
Well, they actually cancel one another out.
That's
So
what I thought.
if you did not have a KOZ on these parcels, and someone came in and decided to develop it, you're going to forego your real estate revenue for 10 years through LERTA instead.
Okay.
KOZ is a program that Governor Ridge launched that made it a virtual tax-free zone for both local and state. So in terms of local effect on your budget, it has none. We haven't been collecting on it, and we wouldn't, even if it was, it's a good point. If it wasn't for a KOZ, a developer would then seek LERTA.
Okay.
But these sites have been historically difficult to get off the ground. I can just tell you that we're talking with a company that is also looking in Ohio. Ohio is extremely aggressive. We need to remain in the game, so to speak. I understand it's important that we get tax revenues flowing in, but ultimately, without these programs, those sites that I listed, like 16th and Pittsburgh, Hero BX, Calypso, and 14th and Parade, and there's other ones I'm forgetting now, but once they're developed, we often forget that the way they got developed was by having enough incentive at the beginning to get the shovel in the ground. And we're in a competition with other cities and other states, and the sooner we can get someone out there to invest, the sooner we're going to generate tax dollars. It's just going to take a while.
Do you think, I know you have new responsibilities and a new reporting structure, but do you think we should ask Deborah for information on those other sites and what they're generating now? I think that helps to tell the narrative, especially as, McGinnis already has a plan in place. We're hopeful that opportunity comes to that Savacchio Business Park. So I don't know if that would be you or somebody in under her purview now, but I think it would be helpful.
Well, I mean, if there's anything that you would like me to if there's some information you'd like me to get, I could still be your contact on that. It just,
Okay.
it may take me a couple days, but
Yeah, I think there's no rush, but, and you still have the same email, Chris?
yes, I do. Yeah,
Okay.
that's still active. So
Thank you for coming on board to explain this to us. We appreciate it.
sure. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I just wanted to answer one of Councilwoman Allen's question. Both sites are in federal opportunity zones also.
That's correct. Yep.
Right. Although those tax breaks accrue to the developer and not to, right? I mean, those are capital gains deferments. So, but thank you for pointing that out.
They're exactly. They don't defer any current obligations. What it is shielding prior obligations that you've already created from other investments, capital gains that you've accrued.
Chris, this is Dave Byrne. I just had a couple of quick comments. Thank you so much for explaining, what's current in the zones and what kind of the history a little bit. So definitely appreciate that. And I know that I understand the question about the scenarios that you can't really give any numbers on the taxes, but maybe in the future we can kind of maybe do a maybe just a scenario about a possible development and how it would affect taxes, just to kind of educate council on the what does happen with taxes and kind of some real numbers in an actual project. So maybe we could just consider a scenario in the future, but I definitely appreciate the explanation. It does
Sure.
understand this situation.
Yeah, I mean, we could take multiple scenarios. Say, what if it was a $10 million development? What if it was $50 million? And of course, it's all a guess at this point because we don't know. But and the other side of this too is I'm hoping this will be the last time that we do any extensions. I remember when I first started, we extended something like 10 or 12 of them, and then it's just the program's been winding down as they've been developed, and now we're down to 2, and this is for another 10 years. I really hope we don't ever do this again, because that means it's we finally developed all of the initial zones that were set out back in the 90s. So hopefully this is the last one.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still want to table it?
Table the nature of the,
Huh?
how do you rescind a
Non-table. Table.
Well, I think if I'm
Or we just
correct,
vote
I
no
think
to
the
the table.
person who made the motion to table it has to retract his motion.
So you're going to retract your motion on tabling it, Mr. Keys?
I make a motion to retract my motion to table this resolution.
Was there a
Second that
second?
retraction. We'll second that retraction.
Okay.
Okay, roll call.
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brennan, Ms. Brzezinski, Mr. Keys, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Renarski. And this resolution will adopt 6-0. And that'll take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
All righty. How about Mr. Witherspoon this morning?
Oh, from last to first, yeah. I don't know why. But anyway, a couple of things. I got a call last night from Mr. Peterson, who lives at 104 Andrew Park Boulevard. He said he spoke to several other council members. He's concerned about his neighborhood. I understand that he lives there in that area, Andrew Park Boulevard area. There's a gentleman who bought a what was it? It used to be some kind of tavern over there.
Thank you, there.
He's living there, and he's also decided to fix cars and trucks. And my question is, if he's living there, that's a residential area, is that place zoned for business, number one. Number two, he sent me photos where this individual has knocked out the curbs and put blacktop so he can get his trucks in. Now, did he receive permission to knock out the curbs, the concrete curbs where people use to park? Did he get permission from us? Also, Mr. Peterson owns quite a bit of property in that area, and he appears to be a person that's concerned about his neighborhood. So I'm going to ask administration if they would, in fact, look into that. And I told him that I will stay in touch with him. So I appreciate if you would get back to me or any other council person that he spoke to. And his number is 454-1030. 454-1030. He also, living on the east side, is concerned about the shacks or the raggedy buildings behind the old Kaiser Aluminum coming across the Bayfront and 12th. His question is, how come it's taking so long for the city to do something? Well, I did do a little research and found out that we have placed it in the courts, and we cannot, to my knowledge, put pressure on the courts or the judges to move any quicker than they are. So I'll get back to him and give him that information. I know he's not going to be satisfied with it, but that's what I have. And maybe some other council people have additional information. I appreciate it if you share it, if you do. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. President. A few things I wanted to mention. I believe I sent out, we'll send out a new one, but I have a draft of the Bayfront Parkway public hearing. We talked about some possible agenda items for that, and I was kind of looking at September 17th or 24th, so we'll have to see what works for everybody. So I'll talk to Rose and Lori, and we'll see how we could start making arrangements for that. The authorities resolution, just some follow-up. And I reported last time that Renee and other staff members have been communicating with authority directly. We had just a meeting this past weekend, Renee and I with the airport director to get input on appointments and to see what they think about the process we're trying to do with transparency, and they fully support it. And Renee also noted that they're going to be we'll be launching the website soon, and of course that'll be won't be final. It'll be built upon as we get information and publish that. The street co-naming, I have a draft. I'm kind of late in that process. I meant to send something to council earlier for input, so we'll look at that. Citizens Police Review Board, I know we had several discussions about that in the past, so I want to ask rest of council, we don't need to answer it now, but just so, what are the next steps? What do we want to do there? Should we recommend a council committee to review and make a recommendation, so forth? So we should do something there to move that forward and to provide some information to the public. And just the last item is, Rose, I just want to thank you for all your hard work and dedication. It's always been a pleasure to work with you on council, and I wish you the best in your retirement and enjoy your time. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Ms. Allen. Oh, I wasn't on speaker, I guess. Ms. Allen.
I'm coming. I have a report prepared, but I had to put to the top of the report the shocking information that Leanne Radko presented about the phone call she said she got from a retired police officer. Mel asked for a copy of that police report. I think we all need a copy of that police report. And I want to re-emphasize that one of the reasons when I talk about having to spend so much energy and so much time on trying to get council to abide by and create process, it takes away time from the things that I want to be concentrating on, which would be the Civilian Review Board, the Bayfront Parkway, the Airbnb ordinance, blight, so many things that need to be tended to. So we need to find out what happened with that. The person is retired. The fact is that this woman filed a police report about the call. We want to know what happens with her complaint. I'm still trembling from it. It stunned me. It made me very afraid for people if that person and the other person who got fired, how widespread is that culture in the police department? I want to talk in my committee report to remind my colleagues and Erie residents that in the current city budget, we doubled the city's contribution to the Erie Regional and Chamber and Growth Partnership from $25,000 to $50,000. I warned council at the time that the mayor's office made the request that I feared we would be contributing taxpayer money to Republican messaging, and I believe I have been proven correct. In Kevin Cuneo's July 20th column in the Erie Times News, he wrote, in his weekly 5 Things You Need to Know message, Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership CEO James Grunke listed an article titled, quote, Wall Street quietly begins warning about a Biden presidency. Kevin writes, the mention of it seemed kind of partisan coming from a person in Grunke's position. I agree. Next, in an August 22nd story by Jim Martin about the toll that COVID-19 has taken on Erie restaurants, Martin wrote, quote, the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership has said in a series of messages to the Wolf administration that state mandates are only making things worse. Grunke wrote, quote, we can no longer expect our businesses to have faith in a system that is failing them. The CEO seems to not understand that the battle in Erie, in Pennsylvania, and in our country is against a pandemic that the current occupant of the White House has mismanaged, leading to more than 180,000 deaths. In August last year, I protested when the mayor's administration and 2 council officers appeared for a photo op with HUD Secretary Ben Carson when he announced a $1 million grant for lead abatement to the Housing Authority of Erie during the Chamber's homecoming event. I fully expect the Chamber's 2020 virtual homecoming, October 29th and 30th this year, will again be used to spin a Republican message about the economy. If so, I will again object, and I also intend to ask that we reduce the taxpayers' contribution to the 2021 budget to its original dues of $25,000. I also think it's important for people of all political parties, both political parties, to pay attention to the voting process in Pennsylvania. There's legislation being debated in the Pennsylvania House right now, which would expand the ability of poll watchers to go to the polls. That's one of the requests of the Trump administration. It would also eliminate satellite drop boxes for mail-in ballots. I think the Trump administration and the revelations in the Erie Times News about the Postal Service are enough to scare anybody about whether a mail-in ballot during the time of COVID will be postmarked and delivered on time. When I voted by mail in the June primary, my husband and I both took our ballots to the drop box outside the courthouse. Secure drop box, put it in there, and later that day, because it's barcoded, we had an email saying that our ballots had been accepted. Our democracy is at stake. Your right to vote is at stake. Your right to have your vote counted is at stake, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. So pay attention to what's happening at the Pennsylvania State House today. It could impact your decision about how you're going to vote in November 3rd, whether you're going to vote in person or by mail. That's it. Oh, one more thing. I'm sorry. I did want to make it clear, contrary to what the council president alluded to, if I heard correctly, I'm going to have to go back and listen to the tape or the Facebook Live feed, seemed to imply that somehow I had somebody in mind for the city clerk's job. I would never do that. I have never done that. I have integrity. I ran on integrity. I don't have, one of my problems I realized after 3 years, nearly 3 years in this position, is that I am not politically connected. I'm not there to get anybody a job, to get anybody out of a job, to get anything for myself. I want to make that absolutely, positively clear. And if anybody ever implies that again, I will fight back. Thank you.
Mr. Keys.
Oh, I was able to attend the airport authority meeting. You're muted.
I was able to join the airport authority meeting this month. They still are dealing with a lot of issues with the COVID, with the fluctuation in the downward trends of air traffic. And they're working on ways to move forward. Other than that, ironically, it's not the first report I've heard of police or just former police calling people who are involved in the Black Lives Matter incident. And it's disheartening, and it's actually disturbing, and it's an abuse of power that this is happening. And she's not the only person who has received phone calls from people who reportedly call themselves police officers. And if they're active duty police officers, you know, somebody should find out who they are. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. Mr. Brzezinski.
Get myself unmuted here. I think I'm back. Okay. As to Mr. Keys' remarks about the remarks to that lady, that was a retired police officer, maybe battle worn, I don't know who it was, but he wasn't a police officer when he made the call. He was probably a disgruntled person. The lady made a real good point about, you know, psychologicals are kind of important to bring our police in, but there should be periodic checks, because dealing with the things that our police officers have to deal with on a daily basis can have psychological problems associated with it. I mean, you're not, it's a terrible thing to say, but you're not dealing with regular citizens most of the time. Somebody's in trouble or somebody's causing trouble. Do the policemen take it home? What do they do? It is a problem, and we should take a better look at those psychologicals for the guys that are working. Second concern I have, is our city hall open or closed? If we're closed and the people are working from home, then I think their voicemails should be activated so that if people want to call the department, they can get an answer, not an answer saying that the voicemail has not been activated. I've had several calls on this. It happened to me. I'm trying to get a hold of somebody. I won't go into particulars here, but we better decide. We're either open or we're not open. Let's open it up, or if we have to, let's lay off everybody who's not working, because evidently, if they're not checking their telephone calls, they're not serving the citizens of Erie. I'm getting fired up, so I'm going to quit. Rose, I'm going to miss you, even though I only known you for a little time at work here. Take care and enjoy, and don't smile so much. You're going to do it a lot more when you're not here. Thank you, dear. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Brzezinski. Once again, and I know I've mentioned this before, we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on anything as a council, but whether you like me or not, or your colleagues one way or another, you got to respect them to some extent. When people get their time to state what their position is on something, it is only fair and polite to let the other colleagues state what their position is on something, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it. Interrupting and yelling doesn't really accomplish anything. So I'll leave it at that there, and I just want to, probably that's one of the reasons Miss Rose here is going to enjoy her retirement. And please do, Rose, enjoy your retirement. Do we have Miss Lamus still with us?
I'm still here.
Hi there.
Good morning, everybody. I have 8 things, I think, to talk about. So I was really outraged by what Leanna had to tell us, and I'm glad that she came forward, and I'm glad that she filed a complaint. That kind of behavior has no place in the Erie Police Department of today. I did check in with Chief Spizzarni while we were in the meeting, and the complaint is being reviewed. That officer retired 15 years ago. So, but it is being reviewed, and there will be a process that's followed for that. In addition, I just want everybody to know that we have a huge number of officers now. This department has changed a lot in the last few years. There have been a lot of new hires, a lot of younger officers coming on with a very different viewpoint than what was exhibited to Leanna. We have, I think, 46 officers now that are involved in the Police Athletic League. We had officers on a call, a Zoom meeting last night with the Strengthening Police Community Partnerships Council that met for 2 hours on their own time to discuss initiatives and programs that we could be undertaking and policy changes that we could be making to ensure that all residents feel safe and welcome. That's their commitment. And, we were last night reviewing some of the recommendations from President Obama's 21st Century Policing initiative. And those are things that we're taking very seriously, and we're looking forward to discussing with council. Chief has been busy with body-worn camera training, but he is coming up with dates when we can continue to schedule additional study sessions with you to review policies, processes, protocols, initiatives, different things that we could be doing. We look forward to council's input. Second, in terms of Mike Peterson's concerns on the building on 12th and Bayfront, code enforcement has been aggressively dealing with the owner on that. There was an order that from the mayor that was not adhered to, and they are in the process of continuing to move that forward. In terms of the garage, we had a former employee that was working on that and had since left. And so we have a new employee coming into zoning, and she's going to be picking that back up again. So there is progress on that too. Both of those are on code and zoning's radar. Let's see, third, in terms of City Hall being open or closed, City Hall is closed for the public to come in, but all the employees are working. And I will look into voicemails being activated, but what most employees, some employees work at home, some employees work in the office, and some are doing a hybrid where they come and go depending on what their responsibilities are and what things need to be taken care of. But most of the employees that are working at home or remotely have had their city desk phones forwarded to either their cell phones or their home phones. So it could be a situation in which they're on another call, or they're on a Zoom meeting, and it automatically is going to it's not getting answered, or it's, you know, so anyway, I will look into that and see what the situation is, but I can assure you that everybody is working. We're still providing all the city services that our residents deserve. And, you know, the city can't shut down when we need to
Renee,
continue.
I'm sorry, but I just have to tell you, it's not only me. I've got people complaining that they can't get answers to questions that they have. They're either getting a voicemail that says it's not hooked up, or the phone just keeps on ringing and nobody answers it. I'm not going to
Okay.
get into specifics. I told you when I did my report, but don't start giving us rosy pictures when you don't know the answers until you check that out. Thank you very much.
No, yeah, and I would, if you could email me, I know you don't want to call anybody out here, but if you could email me the specifics, that would help me to follow up with the appropriate folks to find out what's going on there. On the authorities, boards, and commissions, Dave already talked about that. I just wanted you to know that that is progressing. We've been in contact with several of the executive directors. We're just trying to, you know, make sure we have input from all of them. We're working on updating the website on an interim basis so that we have all the information available in terms of current appointees, when they were appointed, when their terms expire, what the authority, board, or commission's responsibility is, when the meetings are, the meeting minutes. So there are links to all that available on the city's website for people to review before deciding whether or not they are interested in throwing their hat in the ring to serve on that authority, board, or commission. Last week at the press conference, quickly, we announced the continuation of the Secure Smart City initiative, which is being rolled out into the 8 opportunity zones. A letter went out, or is going out today, to around 200 property owners in the opportunity zones to request access to their buildings to affix public Wi-Fi access points in partnership with the city and VNet, so that we can provide free public access Wi-Fi to residents in the opportunity zones. In addition to that, Penelec will begin the process of replacing all the streetlights with LED lighting in the fall, probably around October or November.
Renee, can I ask a question? I'm sorry about this. You know, Amy Murdoch at the caucus today said that with the chamber taking over the innovation district, that they were going to concentrate on accelerator versus secure smart city. If you'll recall, and Ed Betza would know, we signed some kind of agreement on the secure smart city, which I believe obligated us financially for something that we would get reimbursed from. I just am wondering, we don't have to know today, but I think it would help to clarify, since, you know, how that secure smart city initiative goes forward with the innovation district having changed. And if Ed could check on that. I remember talking to Ed about this because I think that we agreed to incur a cost, but we would be reimbursed somehow because of the data or the ads being collected. So we don't need to have that answer today, but I just wanted to ask about it since it was top of mind since Amy talked to us this morning. So maybe
Sure.
that would be a good topic for, I don't think we need a whole study session on it, but maybe, you know, the next administration presentation. Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
Sure. And I will just briefly say on that, you know, we had also agreements in place, of course, with Quantella and Penelec and Paradigm IT. And there was no funding going to the Erie Innovation. My recollection is that this went through a lot of different iterations, and I don't know if Ed will have the specifics off the top of his head, but the funding, like we're gonna save money on the conversion of the street lights to LED. That funding is being used to pay for, you know, the improvements with the technology, but that's through VNet and Penelec and Quantella and Paradigm. So I guess, you know, one of the things that I would say is that we can still continue, even though the Area Innovation District is not still involved in that. But I think it's still important for us to continue to implement that project. You know, the opportunity zones are just at the start, and we're hoping to be able to, you know, at least get that through the entire urban core and hopefully more. And of course, we were able to secure a $500,000 grant from the Appalachian Regional Commission to help with the purchase of that equipment. So we own the equipment. We set it up so that we would be the purchaser, we would own the equipment.
I agree, and I always thought that the Smart City Initiative was a good way to help brand us. So thanks for following up on that, and thanks for the explanation.
We will. Yeah, and and it's more important now than ever. I mean, we'd never imagined we'd be going through a pandemic and we'd have, a lot of people working from home and trying to do school from home. So, let's see. The census, again, I want to say how important that is. We have 4 weeks left. For those residents who are listening, census takers have started going door to door. They can come to any unresponsive household up to 6 times. The current city self-response rate is 63.3%. We do not know how much enumeration the U.S. Census takers have done. So our response rate is actually probably higher. What we know statewide is that the self-response rate is 67.7%. But there is an additional 17% that has been garnered through the census takers. So total response rate for the state of Pennsylvania is actually 85%. So we're hoping that the census workers are having a good response. I have had contact with some of them, and I'm getting updates. I have some calls to return today to some who were having trouble in different neighborhoods and are looking for assistance, which we will provide. On that note, Friday, the mayor is going out on the Erie News Now RV with Michelle Jagai, who's the Census Outreach Coordinator for the county, and also with, I believe, some U.S. census takers who will be armed with iPads. And we have firefighters, police officers, and clergy, along with the ice cream truck, who will be meeting the Erie News Now RV at a location, an undisclosed location in the city, to provide ice cream to residents and get people to complete the census. So we're looking forward to that. We're gonna, I think, kick off around 12:30, and just, try to get as many people as possible to complete the census. What we're learning is a lot of people still are not aware of the census, where the funding goes to, why it's so important, and that's going on right now, and the deadline is September 30th. So we're trying to communicate that as broadly as we can. And finally, tomorrow's press conference will be a joint press conference with the Erie Housing Authority to showcase some funding that they are receiving and what they're going to do with it, and also to showcase the Quebec unit, make some announcements there. And then one other thing I wanted to mention is Saturday, September 12th, we will also be going out. This is the last thing. We'll also be going out with United Clergy of Erie, Gannon professors and students, teachers from Erie's public schools, doctors and nurses from UPMC Hammett. We're meeting at 10 a.m. In Bayview Park, Pontiac Field, to have a mask giveaway and some COVID-19 information. There will be a rally and a little event there from 11 to 1. We'll be going door to door to provide information to people as well. Mayor's administration and police and fire will also be involved in that. So we look forward to getting out into the community. I know the mayor enjoys that very much, this getting out and talking to residents and providing information to them. So we try to do that as much as we can. That's all.
Hey, very busy. Good job. Thank you very much. Do we have the mayor with us this morning?
Yeah, I am here just listening. Renee did a great job with the report. There's nothing I need to add to that. So good meeting today.
Okay. Well, welcome, Mayor. Good to see you. Do we have Mr. Betza with us?
I am. I don't have anything to add, though.
I will be addressing the secure smart city issue just to make sure that we don't lose anything as Liz raised. But I think we're good for now.
Very good.
President.
Yes, sir, Mr. Witherspoon.
Just a thought. Is there any way, Mr. Betson, is there any way when we hire a new policeman, we can get a 5-year commitment for them to live in the city? Corporation does it, and I know they're different, but you hire a new policeman and they know ahead of time that they have to live in the city for a 5-year commitment, and they can move out after that. Just a thought. Not looking for an answer right now, I know, but you can throw it at me later.
I will address that with you. There
Thank
are
you.
some complications with it. It's a great idea. It's not quite as simple as that, but it isn't. We are working with the police to try to have them be more local.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, council, we'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll adjourn there, take a 5-minute recess, and have a finance meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Rose? Very good. Okay, Paul, you're up.
Okay, Kathy and I talked on Monday about what she wanted me to do today. And the first thing, I sent everybody a few documents last night to take a look at. So I'm gonna go to that first. And those documents were in just some paperwork that I'm trying to put together, and you'll be seeing in anticipation of. Kathy wants to have a study session sometime in the next month when everybody's available to talk about what to do with the water reserve, or sorry, with the water prepayment of the lease. And I got the water reserve on my mind because a couple members of council, actually 3 of you, have brought to me, maybe we could put the money in the water reserve versus putting it in state required escrow accounts for bond reductions. And so I'm just going to start sending everybody stuff in anticipation of whenever we have this study session. And Jim, I don't know if you're going to schedule that or Kathy's going to schedule that or whoever, but some Thursday night, myself, Lisa, Christine, we've been talking about it. We're ready to go whenever you are, and we can give you all the information you want on whatever you want. But I'm going to start probably overloading everybody with this stuff. Okay?
Has the agreement officially been signed yet? Do we
No.
know the exact amount and all that?
No.
Any of that?
Let me give you an update on where they're at, because I talked to Paul Wojtek on Monday afternoon. They have a scheduled, and if everybody remembers the schedule that we get when we issue a bond, the first thing you do is you go to the rating agencies to get rated. The Water Authority has a scheduled rating meeting with Standard & Poor's. I don't know the date. It's the end of the month. So once that's done, Standard & Poor's will look over all the documentation and all the financial history of the Water Authority, and they'll say, okay, you as an organization are rated such, and then the paperwork starts being put together. And I don't know if anyone's ever sat down and looked online. We have to put out, when we issue a bond, something called an official statement. And an official statement is, it's sort of like our CAFR, but it's a history of everything that's ever happened with the organization and what, who's in charge and why they're in charge and what these bonds what debt they have and what debt is going to be issued. And there's a multitude of things. These things are about 100 pages long. But these official statements go out to all the bond salespeople. So the underwriter puts this together, and they give it out to everybody that could be a prospective purchaser of those bonds. Because the Water Authority is going to sell bonds, and they're going to end up selling them to the Wichita School District Pension Fund, or just whoever buys. It's mostly institutional buyers on these bigger issues. So they're going to sell these bonds. Now, between the rating call, the official statement, and the sale date, it takes a couple, 2-3 weeks. So they're looking at selling somewhere in the middle of October. And don't hold me to that, because again, their schedule is not finalized, but knowing the schedule we work on, it takes about a couple weeks after that. The underwriters then sell the bonds, and it takes another couple weeks after that before there's a closing date on when the money transfers between whoever bought the bonds and whoever sold the bonds. And then after that, then the Water Authority, based on the lease prepayment agreement, that's what we talked about the other morning. Kathy was on the morning Zoom with the mayor. Ed Betts had talked to Tim Sennett about their time frame for just putting the document together that said, we're going to prepay the lease. And then Ed hopefully will give me the information he got so we can verify that it's correct down here. And then the agreement will be completed and we'll get the money. So it's normally about a 2-month process.
So Paul, my question would be then, the timing of this study session, is it so we know what the actual proceeds will be?
We will not.
Where to put it? And my further question, I think, because I replied to your email last night, just kind of, skimming through it. It sounded to me like there are laws about where that money has to go. Am I correct? I mean, so I guess I'm wondering about the study session, the timing of it, and what the purpose of it would be. Is it better to do that when we actually know what the proceeds will be? I'm confused about what this new study session would cover and what the correct timing would be for that. So if you could elaborate on that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, to back up then, when we get this money, because we're getting money that's in lieu of this 40-year annual lease, we're not issuing bonds. So we can put the money wherever we want to, or at council's direction. So I hope that answers your question. If council decides,
but if we pay off our bonds, that's a different process, correct? Or not pay off, but pay down. Is that?
Well, if we decide to put that money in our already funded escrow account with the Bank of New York, if through ordinance we say we are going to get this money and we are going to pay down the debt that we have, then once that money goes into the already set up Bank of New York escrow accounts, then that's when there's a law that says we can't take the money out.
Okay.
If we put the money in again, as 3 of you have asked me about this, if we put the money in the Water Reserve Fund, then we can do whatever we want to it. We can put that money in there and we can buy something, or we can let it sit there for 40 years, or we can do whatever we want, remembering the council has the authority to move money out of that Water Reserve Fund at their will, using the supermajority vote process. So if it
and what is our supermajority? It has to be unanimous or what?
No, it doesn't have to be unanimous.
Okay.
Council President Winarski could answer that better, since it's Jimmy. Is Jim on?
I don't think he came back
Okay.
yet.
But
he can't count 5 minutes.
He has been back, but he has stepped away from his phone.
Yeah,
Okay, so Paul, maybe we should prepare a list of
Mel
questions
should
that
know.
all of us would have for the study session, or?
Yeah, if you want to, because when Kathy and I talked to this, we had talked about, the big thing here is if we give the money to the Bank of New York, the money goes into the escrow account, it sits there forever. I guess we'll go back to the blue book later, but the one piece of paper everybody got last night with the chart shows that treasuries right now are paying about 0.08% on the dollar, and 20-year treasuries are paying 1%. So, if we put the money there, we have the safety of knowing that no future mayor or no future council could ever take that money and spend it in a manner that wasn't consistent with what the mayor and what this council wants to have done now. But if we put the money, again, going back to it, if we put the money in the water reserve, the last 25 years, the water reserve, we've made on average 6%. And I pulled out all the sheets of paper if everybody wants to hear. But if you get that super majority, and I guess since Jimmy's on, it's 6 people is what it is. But I didn't want to speak for Jim as the council president.
I think it's 6.
Yeah, I just said it's 6. But
Yeah.
I figured I'd let Jim tell everybody that since it's your vote, it's not my vote. But we've had years, and I will tell you this. Last year, we made 22% in the water reserve. The year before, we lost 5%. The year before that, we made 17%, 6% the year before that, 2%, 7%. So, I can go back in time for 25 years, but the thing we need to remember, if we put that money into the water reserve, we are not positive we are going to get 6% year after year after year. I'm going to tell you, based on the history of the stock market, the New York Stock Exchange, the Standard & Poor's indexes, over the next 25 years, we're probably going to get 6%, but there's going to be ebbs and flows to this. There's going to be ups and downs. And if we're using this money to balance a budget, a debt service budget, because we're still going to need to pay that $4 million a year in debt service, we have to make sure that money is safe. And we have to make sure it's going to be used for what it's supposed to be used for.
And Paul, according to the projections, we have $4 million, but then it does go up to 9 million, right? Am I right? That
our debt service?
Yes.
In a couple years, the debt service will be $9 million a year. And that's what it was from 2000 until about 2015. It's just been these last 3 or 4, 5 years that it's gone down.
And I have one other question, which is, it just refreshed my memory. Is Susquehanna Group still involved in
Yes, they are. Yes.
They would present some recommendations as to how to use these?
No, they won't.
Okay.
They won't. They absolutely positively will not, and I know they won't because they will not tell you. They'll tell you that if you put, just as my sheets show, if you put the money in treasuries, you're going to make 1%. If you put the money in the water reserve, it's going to make 6%. If you put the money in treasuries and you put it in the Bank of New York escrow accounts, it's absolutely safe. Liz Allen could not get 5 of her colleagues to vote and say, let's take that money out and buy, as Kaz always talked about, a helicopter. I don't even know what I don't know what a helicopter costs, but you could not get 5 of your colleagues to say, let's take that money out and spend it on something. Once it goes into the Bank of New York escrows, it's there forever. It makes a lot less of interest, but it's safe to the process that the mayor wants to pay down debt.
Okay.
If it goes into the water, okay.
So I just want to make sure. So Susquehanna is going to be presenting scenarios for us, not recommendations, but they will lay out like sort of the pros and cons of these various options, correct?
I'll ask them if they'll do that, yes.
And with your input too. I just want to say as an aside on the helicopter, I worked for the Metropolitan Milwaukee Criminal Justice Council after I graduated from college, and that was when there was all kinds of law enforcement assistance administration funding flowing, And all these suburban police departments were wanting to buy helicopters. And if you remember, Mill Creek bought a helicopter and it crashed, and I think somebody got badly injured. So I would not be in favor of buying helicopters. I just want to be on the record for that.
There you go. No
Oh,
helicopter.
come on, Liz.
I know.
Come on, Liz.
How are we gonna get to our council
Wait for the
meeting?
city council meeting.
We can fly you in, Liz. Come on, Liz.
We got a big roof here.
Yeah, I have to leave to get to another meeting, but I just wanted to say that the whole reason for doing this water authority deal is to solve this, one of the three major long-term problems that PFM identified, and we already knew were there, and that is our debt payment. So what I'm hoping, and it's council's decision how we spend the money, what we do with it. What I would like to see happen is we take about 15 million, set that aside to be used to get us through the budget problems that have partially at least been caused by COVID-19 this year, and also to eliminate the need for any kind of tax increase for the next 2 years. And one of the handouts Paul gave you shows that over the next 3 years, we're going to need about $13.4 million to get us through the budget without having to raise taxes at all. The other, let's say we get 100 million, which if it closed this week, that's probably what we would have gotten. I would say take 15 million, set it aside to get us through the budget the next 3 years. The other 85 million should all be used to pay down debt. Now, some of that, we can't pay it all down day one. It's going to be years before we can actually pay it down because there's terms on the debt. So again, the next question then is how do we invest that money we're setting aside to pay down future debt years out? And that's something we can certainly talk about. But what I'm really hoping for agreement from City Council is that we set aside 15 million to get us through this year and the next 2 years, and that whatever's left, 80 to 85, could even be more than that, but I'll keep my fingers crossed. We pay down any debt we can now, invest the rest till we can pay down future debt. So I just wanted to kind of share that and see if anybody has any questions or any issues or suggestions with that approach.
I have a question.
Nope.
Everybody that's talking.
Go ahead.
No, you first. Whoever was on first.
No, the only thing we just want to make sure all our options are on the table. Once again, this is one of those once in a lifetime type of situations that I think we're all going to have. And just like I've said in the past, we just want to make sure we do it right. That's all.
Yeah, so I have a question. Is there anything that's stopping us from refinancing our debt?
Yes, we did look at that, and what we learned is we can't spend the money as we'd like to if we refinance. Paul, do you want to explain that? We did look at that in detail.
Yeah, and Michael, at this point in time,
No, I think he misunderstood me. I meant refinancing in conjunction with the sale, not one or the other.
No, and I was going to answer that. Last year in 2019, we issued a new bond series. And at that point in time, we did refund all the callable debt that was available because at that time, interest rates back then were at a 10-year low. So we only have 2 or 3 issues right now. The 2011s are the full of the 2011s, and some of the capital appreciation bonds from back in time are eligible to be refunded now. So when that $85 million comes in, and if we put that money into the escrow accounts at that point in time, there will be bonds that will be paid off. So so to answer your question, yes, whatever will be able to be paid off at these really, really low interest rates, then they will be paid off.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Okay, Paul, if you want to just continue, if you would. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so I guess then, since we started on this, and again, everybody's got the sheets I've been handing out, and I guess we'll try giving you more and more each day or each week in anticipation of whenever a study session gets put together. But the first page, as the mayor said, that's kind of a cash flow projection with the most updated numbers. We tried to take COVID-19 into account. We tried to take new contract negotiations into account. So that's what that page is. The next page with the chart on it, I just wanted everybody to see how interest rates have been moving.
Hey,
And some of
Paul,
the, yes.
I just want to let you know, I'm going to sign off here, but I'll still be listening on the phone on my way to the next.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Have a good morning. Okay, so then the next sheet is the sheet that's called City Council Discussion Points. Just some points of interest for everybody. I mean, as talking points, as the mayor said, that the decision's going to be made, you know, what to do with this money. He wants to use it to pay down debt, which I think is in everybody's best interest. But how are we going to pay down debt is the question to be answered. Whether we put it in the escrow account so that it's just handled and it's done, or we manage it ourselves by putting it in the water reserve and taking out $3.5–4 million of the water reserve each year, so that we have money to pay our debt, and using any extra interest to do whatever. But remembering that there's always the
That payment looking at you.
yeah, and also, you know, a future council may not be as frugal as this, and they may spend the money. The last couple of sheets, I just wanted to show everyone the one that says hypothetical investment at 6%. That one, again, that shows, you know, the beginning balance of getting $85 million and what 6% would earn, and withdrawing those funds of $7.4 million is comparing that to the analysis of a potential lease run. The last time we had PNC, Nick Falgione, PNC do it was on August 13th. And, you know, our debt payments for the next 20 years would be about $3.5 million, but we'd be able to get about $7.4 million every year. But again, that's if we earned a 6% interest rate year after year after year, which I can safely say will not happen 20 years in a row. Just not going to happen. So that's what those sheets are. I guess the day or so, once we start getting more information together for everybody, the day or so before we do this study session, whether it be next Thursday, the Thursday after, I mean, we're not going to get this money until 1st of November, probably. So we have a couple months to figure out, and everybody mentally can figure out what they think is best. And, you know, questions, please ask me any questions. We'll get the information together for you, and we'll take it from there. But we have a good couple months.
And Paul, I know Kathy had asked to have a study session. It can be held off till October if need be.
Yeah.
You know, if you think we're no closer to the dollar amount. I know you can give us a window of 90 to 100 million, right?
Right. It could be any, I mean, because we don't know, again, you know, the next 2 months could bring who knows what. I mean, tomorrow could bring who knows what. We know that we're going to do this, and we know that as interest rates and treasury rates are right now, we're going to get X amount of dollars. But, you know, who knows? I mean, 2 months from now. But, I mean, not to be cavalier with this, we need $15 million to balance the budget this year, next year, and the year after. So whatever we get, we're paying down debt with.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yes, sir.
I just had a suggestion. I'm thinking that this was a pretty good explanation. Kathy hasn't been able to attend. I wonder, Frank, is this is recording on Facebook, correct? So Kathy could listen to this. Perhaps this would answer some of her questions, and then we do defer the study session till October. I'm just thinking that between the documents you sent last night and what you explained today, I think that's very helpful. So I would suggest that instead of like a study session in September, which I think would not yield much more information than we got today, much more than the good information we got today. I'm happy to suggest that to Kathy if you want me to.
Well, she stops up here about once a week, and we've talked about this stuff a multitude of times. But I do agree with that if we sit down and talk about this now, and I talked to Nick Falgione at PNC this afternoon, and he said, well, the market's such that you're going to get 98 million, or, give or take whatever number, and then all of a sudden, October 15th hits when the closing happens and we get 101 or 96, I think it's better to wait for the bond sale and the closing before, just so there's no questions in the future about what the math of these things are. But this is, basically, I just wanted everybody to see about what today is and to start thinking, as the mayor said a multitude of times, we're going to take this money and pay down debt. How we pay down the debt is going to be the I don't want to say the $1 million question, but I guess in this case, the $100 million question, because how are we going to pay down debt? Are we going to put it in the water reserve where we can make a boatload more of interest? Or are we going to put it in, the already set up Bank of New York has been our escrow agent going back to Mayor Toole. I mean, they do it. So, I mean, do we put it in the Bank of New York and allow them to do what they do? So.
Well, that's for conversation later, but
Yeah,
it's good
yes.
preliminary information.
And we'll keep inundating you with more paperwork, so be on the lookout for that.
All right. Thank you. Paul, I did have one note that I wanted to bring up. The parking authority negotiations. Is there any new word on what and if we're getting anything for 2021, or maybe even David might know something?
No, as of right this moment, when COVID hit, we'd attended a couple, 2 or 3 meetings back in, Lisa's sitting here, February, March, where we were starting to negotiate with them. Now, there's no agreement in place at this point in time. But right now, the agreement that the mayor made with the parking authority last fall was they were going to pay us $400,000 this year, and we are not going to pay them the $100,000 we usually pay them as a stipend for the meter persons to go out and write the tickets for us. And they've given us $100,000 already. We asked them where the second quarter $100,000 was, in fact, a couple days ago, and Christopher Friday said it's coming soon, and he'd have another payment to us probably the beginning of October. So we're on pace right now to receive the money that they agreed to pay us so far this year. But as of right this moment, there's no agreement in place for 2021.
I did talk to Chris Friday, and they are putting together a proposal. I thought it would have been sent already, but I haven't heard yet, and I haven't been privy to a copy of it. So I'm guessing that it's expected soon by the mayor, to the mayor. So we'll look forward to that, and I could always check in with Chris again and check.
Dave, are you the liaison?
Yes.
Then you should get a direct copy as well.
Okay.
I would just add that Christopher and I talked, I believe it was last week, and we're looking at some creative ideas. But I've reached out to some city staff to discuss those, but I don't have anything to report on that yet. But we are, continuing to look at other options for next year. So.
Renee, did he talk about the letter that he mentioned to me, the proposal?
No.
Okay, so maybe he's still putting it together. I thought that was together, or maybe he was just talking to you about different options.
Maybe he wanted to take that route first.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Paul, didn't mean to interrupt. I was just.
No, that's okay. I think since Renee has a lot more information about, we haven't really been privy to any of that stuff. So no, interrupt. Absolutely.
Okay. If you want to move forward on with our,
Okay, you want to go through the monthly revenue and expenditure report?
yeah,
Do they have?
unless, or at least go through the glaring items that may have stuck out to you. I mean, I don't think we have to go line per line, just.
Okay, I guess if we go to the, is this the way they got it? Probably about the first page. The first page, we look at the very first line, the taxes collected revenue. You know, I keep talking every month about the collections, and one of the things that's come about since June or July, there's 4 specific line items I wanted to talk about. The current real estate tax collections, even in the economic situation we're in, are actually up. We've collected this year about 88.5% of the assessment that was sent out back in January. And that compares to about 87.7% of the assessment, not the budgeted amount, because when you look back in the budgeted, the current budget, we're collected about 98% this year and about 96% last year. And we normally budget every year based on the previous 2 or 3 years collections, which are normally in the 90% bracket. So it's odd that even with COVID, you know, our collections of the total assessment through the end of August are 88.6% this year, 87.7% in 19, and 87.1% in 18. Then another line item, the other 3 line items I wanted to talk about were the special levy tax, the income taxes, and the LST taxes. You know, I've talked at length about the unemployment reports, and you know, we've gone through the last 6 months of unemployment where we've hit, my sheets are telling me, just the last report in Pennsylvania was 10.2% and 11.6 and 10.9. We're hanging around 10%, which is double the unemployment that we had in 2019. Well, our LST collections, which is the dollar a week that we all pay to, you know, as part of our paycheck deductions, I just did this morning, I looked at the latest Berkheimer reports, and for the time period of July and August, which are the end of the second quarter collections and the start of the third quarter collections, in 2020, we've collected $357,000 so far. In 2019, we collected $377,000. So there is about a 5% or so decrease. And in 2018, we collected about $380,000, which is, again, so we're monitoring this on a daily basis. But even though the unemployment rate for the state of Pennsylvania is around 10%, our collections on that dollar a week are a little less. So I can give you a better update on that next month, hopefully. But it doesn't seem as though, I don't know, just based on these unemployment reports versus the LST reports. And the next numbers I'm going to give you are the income tax collections. For the income tax, the special levy portion of the income tax, for that same time frame, the July and August, this year we've collected $1,032,000. Last year we collected $1,067,000, so it looks like we're down a little bit. But in 18 we collected $1,004,000. So we're hanging right around the same spot. And the same thing happened in the income tax, and I adjusted the income tax for the increase in the income tax this year. But we're at 1.543, 1.514 last year, and 1.579 2 years ago. So I think we'll know a little bit better next month where we get a little bit into more into the third quarter collections, which are based on the second quarter of work. And the second quarter was when the unemployment was really, really high, when it was hanging around 14, 15% that whole quarter. So that's the very first line. I think, Jim, to answer your question, where things of note, the taxes, and I don't know, is Erie, it's not immune to it, because everybody I talk to, there's a lot of unemployment out there, but is it maybe not as bad based on these numbers, or we're going to see a huge drop through the floor come the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth? I don't know yet. So,
Okay.
Looking down that other page, the license and the permits, I think when you go back to the detail report, you'll see that there is a huge uptick in the building permits through this year through last year. Even though we had that shutdown in April, so far this year we've collected about $426,000 in building permits, and at this point in time last year we'd only collected $229,000. So that's a good thing, and that hopefully the LRTA that you as a council passed has spurred that on. The rest of the revenues, most of those things are all timing. Nothing that sticks out. The one thing we looked at, rental licenses, they were a little slow in getting those bills out due to the COVID-19, and we had collected a very small percentage back in June. Now through the end of August, we're almost collected up to the point where we were last year. So that's a good thing. Again, looking at all these other things, everything looks to be the same. Next month at the Finance Committee meeting, after we've had 3 months of collecting on the delinquent parking tickets, I'm going to have Lisa give a little report, because she's been working with our collection company on a daily basis, every 3 days, to figure out where they're at, how they're doing. And it's moving along. Below the line, the salaries and expenses, salaries, wages, benefits, there's really nothing that sticks out. When you go back to the detail, you'll look at overtime's down a little bit. Salaries are 66%, right where they were last year. Group insurance is down, which is a good thing. We're a little healthier this year. And comparing services and supplies, our supplies are down a little bit and our services are down a little bit. So as the mayor talked at the mid-year report, he made that edict that instead of ordinary and necessary, it's got to be an emergency and necessary. So spending is down. So I guess what I want to take from the general fund in that very first page is the income tax collections seem to be hanging where they are. And maybe, hopefully, I don't want to say hopefully I was wrong when we made our projections on the mid-year based on the unemployment, and it's not going to come back and bite us in October, November, December. But right now we're on pace to be, I don't want to say good, okay. I mean, it's not as bad for where we should be as we projected it to be. So hopefully I'm wrong and we collect exactly what we budgeted.
Wouldn't be the first time anyway,
No, I've been wrong. Ask my wife and kids. 1 million. I'm like that sign at McDonald's, 1 billion served. Paul's been wrong 1 million times. So.
Well, that ain't the same.
It could be just as easily as a lot of essential workers live in our city.
Yeah, Michael, you could. Yep. Yeah, and they are still working. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Sir.
Okay, page 2, the sewer revenue fund. The big thing that sticks out here is the city, the fifth line down, the city charges. And the city charges are up by a couple $100,000, but we also raised the rates this year. So the usage, the flow data is saying that the usage is down, and that's all the governmental, which is not us, it's the schools, you know, nobody's in school. And it's also the industrial. In that second quarter, the flows with the industrials really took a big hit. Now, the residential flows are up a little bit because everybody was at home, but the dollar amount for the residentials is not as high that it makes up for the decrease in those other line
Industrial,
items.
yes.
Yeah. So that's why you're going to see it's up, but that's a little bit of a concern to us. Looking below the line, you'll see that salaries and benefits are about where they should be. Supplies and services are taking the two together. You're about down about $100,000, which is good, but there's been less flow going through the plant because of those industrials and the governmentals. So that's about where we projected it to be. Looking at the bottom line, last year we were at this point in time about $1 million ahead, and this year we're about $800,000 ahead, which is good. But at the end of the year, we'll make our pension, more of our pension payments and bond payments. So that fund is looking again, just like the mid-year projection, to be somewhere in the neighborhood of being a break even, or somewhere, you know, a little plus or a little minus. The next page, the refuse and recycling fund. The refuse collections are up by $500,000, and that's due to the rate increase this past year. And then the expenditures are up a little bit, but we took the transfer that we normally take out of the refuse department earlier in this year because there was extra cash in the refuse department bank account. So we wanted to make sure, due to the COVID, that we were going to have enough money in the general fund checking account too. So the next page back, the golf fund. Golf's revenues are up about $30,000 this year, which is a good thing. You know, the golf being up.
I contributed.
Yeah.
A couple times.
Yeah, it's a good thing. You know, we were talking about that the other day. Hopefully we can continue the momentum next year. I mean, as we all know, our in the general fund, our amusement tax money is way down because there's no SeaWorlds, there's no 8th Grade Tuesdays, there's no block parties, there's no concerts out at the beach. I mean, nobody can really, you know, nobody can do anything. So a lot of people that were away from golf are turning back to golf. So we're trying to do everything we can to make the people that come to the golf courses now happy, so that next year when they can go to their kids' Little League game, maybe they go to the Little League game, and after the game they go out to Downing or Glenwood, J.C. Martin, and play. So, you know, we're trying and we're hoping there. Expenditures in golf are down a little bit. Just we haven't had as many part-time workers there as needed because with the COVID earlier in the year, we were pretty much shut down for the whole month of April. The next back, liquid fuels. The revenues are based on what the state gives us. And you'll see that the expenditures are down a little bit from last year, but they're $1.5 million less than the revenues. And that's usually an account at the end of the year that's supposed to zero itself out. When the state gives us $3 million in liquid fuels money, we're supposed to spend $3 million. So what's going to happen is you as a council are going to see we still have a lot of paving to do. And I think Chuck mentioned that last week, or David mentioned that last Friday on the council Zoom meeting, that the newest paving contract, number 3, was coming up. So it's only September. The paving mills and the blacktop mills are still open till normally the middle of November. So we still have 6, 8, 9 weeks of paving to go. So you'll see a lot of bills coming through in liquid fuels. Next bill through, or next line, group of line items is the capital improvement fund. Year-to-date expenditures, those are all the capital items that we've bought. We bought, the 6 police cars, and we've done some fix up in the building. So that's where those expenditures come from. Actually, we normally in September, October, November, we do the refund where we take the money out of the water reserve to replenish the capital fund. So sometime in the next 6-8 weeks, council will get the list from myself showing, I know everybody keeps their weekly list of bills, so you know what we've bought, but I like to give everybody that list in October that says, here are the 27 things we spent $500,000 on this year. So that's coming. The next group of line items is the risk management fund. And Chris, I could call him from across the hall, but I think the biggest thing to look at here is in the expenditures, the personnel benefits are down by $1.4 million. And that includes the health insurance and the workers' comp. And I can't stress enough how much work Chris has done the last 5 years on the comp. And before him, AJ Antolik, when AJ was our risk manager, the 4 years he did it. I mean, in the last 10 years, those guys have taken it where we were averaging, $800,000, $1 million a year in comp claims down to $300,000-$400,000. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but when you look at the council handout book every year at budget time, our benchmarks are way below what the industry standards are for workers' comp. So, I mean, I always praise Chris in all the work he does with the safety program and the, all the things he does with everybody that works here on a daily and weekly basis. So a part of it also is, as everybody remembers, last year we had a horrible year in, am I still on?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 'cause my computer went dead up here. We had a horrible year in health insurance last year, and in the world of self-insured, we talk about that at the budget sessions every year. They normally say you have 2 bad years, 2 good years, and 3 even years. Well, last year was our horrible year, and we're bouncing back. And I can't say that everybody is trying to live a healthier lifestyle, but we don't have the claims we have last year. So we're back to a level where we were 2, 3, 4 years in the past. And then the last page of the summaries is the debt service page, and that's just the debt service that we've paid so far this year. The 10 or 15 pages after that are all the detail. And I know it's just the first of the month, second of the month, so everyone, when everybody gets a chance to look at this thing, the detail, with any questions you have, please give me a call or send me an email or what, however. But I think the weirdness of all this is that 10 and 15% unemployment that we've been averaging, and the income tax collections at this point in time are not showing that. So I don't know what that means. And I've been on the phone with the people from Berkheimer, because they have a couple people down in the Bangor office that do nothing but analyze trends, and they're looking at the same stuff we're looking at. So hopefully I'll have a better answer to that next month.
Paul, I have a couple of questions and comments. One is when you were talking about a healthier lifestyle, I believe that Erie Walk starts on Friday, and Chris is the one who coordinated that. It was supposed to kick off in May and was pushed back because of COVID. So that's where those who have signed up for it agree to do at least 30 minutes of exercise a day and then self-report. It's a competition among various downtown employers. So I thank Chris for having initiated that, I believe, last year, and I participated then, and I plan to participate now. On workers' comp, would you at some point be able to provide us a general idea about where the most workers' comp complaints are coming from? What type of work or department? The reason I'm mentioning this is because I talked to a friend of mine who had been a city manager in a different state, and their experience was that the most workers' comp complaints were from the refuse workers, actual injuries. So their city switched to that system where everybody, the city provides the bins and then lifts them up into the truck. And he said it substantially reduced workers' comp claims, and they were surprised at how much they were able to save. So I think it would help us to know, even though we've made strides, where those workers' comp claims are coming from. And my last thing is going to be one of my things that I've always asked about. It sounds like we're getting prepared to use the narrative again that the Gulf Reserve Fund is a great thing. I want to remind everybody, even though we paid money, or the state paid money to have, pay consultants to come in and advise us on how to get our finances in shape. Gordon Mann did list in that report that after doing the water thing, that looking at the Gulf Fund should be one of the things on the list. And I think that's great that it's doing better, but that still doesn't tell us long-term what we need to know. So let's remember that we should have a checklist of all the things we paid for, or the state paid for, in terms of getting our financial house in order, and that was one of them. It wasn't just a Liz Allen idea. It was from those consultants that we paid, or the state paid, or the taxpayers paid for. Thank you.
I guess to answer those questions, you're right that refuse is one of the top 3 departments that we have trouble with workers' comp: police, fire, and refuse. And I think Chris, I don't have my budget handout book in front of me, but Chris has given everybody that information or somewhere in the past on the percentages of, which departments are comp people. And that's why he spends a lot of time up there with the 2 bureau chiefs, Jamie DePalma and Jose Polanco, dealing with lifting and, how to get on and off the trucks and all that stuff. Maybe
it might be an opportunity. Maybe there's grants out there to do a pilot project in, one neighborhood or one zip code to see if those lifting things, which would of course be a capital investment, might, have long-term payoff. And my evidence is anecdotal, but it's just, I think thought it was interesting to learn about that. So thank you.
Jim, I have nothing.
So Paula, I know we talked about the Water Authority at the beginning of the discussion here. So are we going to schedule a more focused discussion after we review the information? I know there were some questions, there was some input. Do we want to do that? I'm not sure if we decided we're going to set up a study session or a meeting to talk about that further.
Sometime in October, when we get closer to the closing date, so we know how much money we actually are going to get.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, if that's, we'll be there. You as a group decide, and we'll be there.
Okay.
Mr. President, are you there? Well, Liz, you're next in line. I appointed you. I appoint you, Liz.
So we're adjourning?
Hey, you in charge. I don't know what
Did we move to adjourn committee meetings? If so, I move to adjourn.
I second it.
Thanks, Mel.
All in favor?
Bye.
Hey, we out.
Bye.
Have a safe day and a safe upcoming weekend.
Hey, Mel, we'll take you to the city council meetings in my helicopter, okay?
That would be a sight.
Oh, Okay.
Take care.
We'll see you.
All righty.
Bye
See
now.
ya.
Okay, everyone have a good day.
You too.
Yep. Oh.